Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, we're going to look at one of, I think, 5 different Linux distributions that are considered tiny. Right after this. So the one we're going to be looking at today is called Alpine Linux. It's designed to be very small, very lightweight, and also very secure. It doesn't use a lot of resources, and so it's good for maybe you have an ARM machine, or maybe you have just a very old machine that you want to be able to use. I have been getting a lot of questions about, particularly on the Clear Linux site, about being able to support systems with less than 2 gig of memory. So this definitely would be an option to be able to be used. Some of the features of Alpine Linux is that, as we mentioned, it is designed for power users that are looking for that small, tight version of Linux. It does use Busybox. So Busybox is kind of an Uber application that replaces about 300 Linux commands. So it is very small. It's about, I don't know, maybe 300 kilobytes in size or so. We'll check that when we do the install as to how big it actually is. But if you compare that to just doing a bash install, bash itself, I think, is probably closer to 400 kilobytes of disk that it requires. And if you add on all of the add-ons for bash, you're probably looking at 450 upwards, maybe. It also does not use the GNU libc. GNU libc has been around since probably it got started in the UNIX side of things, and then of course they moved it over to Linux. So it's been around a while, and GNU libc has a number of features in it that are no longer used, but they maintain those for backwards compatibility. And that's usually what happens with software over time, and that's what we refer to as bloat. Is that we get these features in that we don't really want, but we have to maintain them simply because somebody might be using them. And that's the case with GNU libc. The other thing with GNU libc is somebody said it was about 70% of the code is just for localization. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know I have looked at the code, and the code is really hard to read. It's kind of one of those messy C programs that it's very difficult to find your way around in it. It also has, and of course, over time, the larger an application becomes, the more attack surface it presents to the outside world. And so the more vulnerabilities you're going to find, the more 0 days you're going to have, and none of those are good. So Alpine Linux decided to rewrite libc from scratch, and they used Musil. Musil libc, and it is an open source. It's based on the MIT license. It basically strips out a lot of the things that are in GNU libc that they don't need or want. However, there's a couple of, whenever you do that, there's always a downside, right? And the downside is if you're looking for commercial support, you won't find it in Musil libc. If you're looking for localization support for a lot of different areas of the globe, you got a problem because the only ones it supports are UTF-8 and ENUS. So if that's fine and you can live with that, then Musil libc is probably going to be right for you. There are a number of applications that do offer packages that support Musil libc, and those are Nginx and Apache Web Server. There's also MariaDB or MySQL. And also I think PHP also has a variant of it as well, and Python, of course, as well. Yeah, I mean, you just need to be aware that you need to find if you're going to be using a package that uses the glibc, you're going to have a problem running it under Alpine. Docker uses Alpine Linux as its default image. So when you're installing a Docker image like Hello World or something like that, then yeah. Alpine Linux is usually included in that build. It takes about 8 megabytes in a container. The container image is very small, of course, because it's relying on the operating system for most of its work. So they say 130 megabytes of disk when installed, but I don't know which one that is. When I've installed Alpine Linux, I'm getting about 730 megabytes of disk storage. So, I mean, it's certainly a lot smaller than Ubuntu. Ubuntu is upwards of around 5 gig when you install it to disk, and that's the server version. Binaries are compiled as position-independent executables, or PI. That randomizes the memory start locations, so it makes it difficult for an attacker if they're looking for certain variables within the application, certain places to find data. That makes it a lot more difficult for them to try to find things. And that also wraps not only, of course, the static libraries, but also the dynamic libraries as well. Also, if you're installing pip applications for Python and those are compiling, then Pi will be used to protect those as well. There's 2 additional security features that they mention in Alpine, but I didn't really bring those up here because a lot of distributions have those already as well. So not unique to Alpine. Package management, however, is a lot faster, and they were out looking for a package manager, and they decided to write their own, and it's called APK. Most package managers, I won't say all, but most, have to do a search on the repository, locate the package, read the package, then write it to disk on your hard drive in the cache directory. Then they have to create an index to that cache. Then they have to turn around, read the package, and then take it apart and write it out to disk. So 2 reads, 2 writes on most normal ones. APK doesn't do that. APK goes to the repository, downloads it to the disk as the installed image. 1 read, 1 write, done. So there isn't any of this caching business that goes on with the normal package management. I'm sure that has some downside. Every time you have a solution, you create a new problem. And I'll bet you that there's probably some dependencies that have problems because that's what indexing is supposed to solve. But I don't know that for sure. And I'm sure that people that have used Alpine Linux longer than me probably know ways around that. The current release is 3.10.2. That's as of August the 20th, 2019. And it offers a number of installs. Today, we're going to be using the standard version, which has kind of most of the things you'll need to get started. Not all, but most of them. And it supports a fairly wide range of hardware architectures from x86 all the way to the IBM 390 mainframe. There's also an extended version, and that offers some additional, more commonly used applications or packages. It's suitable for routers and servers, but it only supports a limited set of hardware architectures as well. Sorry about that. And that would be the x86 64 and x86 32-bit. There's a netboot. There's also a mini root file system, which is used for containers and also for specialized root applications. That supports all of them, the full range of hardware architectures that I'm aware of. There's a virtual one that's designed for virtual environments. That would include Open VirtualBox and also QEMU, KVM, and so forth. There's a special one for Zen, and so they're both optimized for virtual environments. They both have the standard packages needed to support clients. And of course, they both only support x86. The Zen version, however, allows you to create Zen DOM 0 implementations, and it also has packages that are specific to Zen in it as well. So a little bit different than the normal virtual package. So if you're using Zen, you probably would want to go with that one. There's a version for Raspberry Pis, and that uses the Raspberry Pi kernel, and that supports RPI 1, 2, and 3. As of this particular video, there's no RPI 4 support. And RPI 4 is gaining more support in the distros, and over time, I'm sure there'll be more of them, including Alpine. But right now, it's just 1, 2, and 3 versions. It also has support for generic ARM, and that uses a bootloader. Of course, and that won't work with Raspberry Pi because they don't use a bootloader. They use, I think it's part of their graphical processor that they actually store their stuff in, so a little bit different. But it supports a wide range of ARM machines, and I have tested that with Odroid XU4s and also N2. Haven't done a lot of testing with it yet, so I haven't run into any issues with it just yet. I have just started playing around with it on the N2. XE4, I did some testing, stood up a graphical user interface, but I haven't really done enough to really comment whether it's good or bad yet. As far as installation options, there's 3, and you choose this during the install. You can choose diskless, and that will allow you to run the operating system out of RAM, and that's a read-only version. So any changes you make to the file system get thrown away the next time you reboot. And that's pretty consistent with Docker as well, unless you create an external drive, a share, if you will, an external drive to be used to do that. But you can use the local backup utility, the LBU, and that will save the modifications to the next boot. Now, if you're doing an awful lot of configuration changes, that probably is not going to be the best way to do it. And there's a data mode they offer in order to be able to handle those situations. So again, it runs from the OS runs from memory, and it creates a writable partition on your hard drive, SSDs, spinning Rust. Doesn't make any difference. But it uses the var locations for its writable partition. I don't know if that partition can be others or you can add additional ones. I don't know. I have not spent a lot of time with that to know. So, I mean, at this juncture with this video, I don't know. But I do know the sys node, I use that one, and it runs the OS in a normal fashion. It has a boot partition and a root partition, and runs it just like a normal Linux install would work. You can use a USB to boot the system from it, but you have to do a prep step first, which is to run setup bootable, which formats and creates all the necessary things on the USB stick to allow it to boot Alpine. Then you run the setup Alpine and install it to the USB stick. That's the only difference. There's a lot of post-installation steps, of course, and those are documented on their wiki. I just picked out a few of them that I thought might be useful. One of the things that you'll find under Alpine Linux is a lot of the heavyweight applications that you find in most Linux distros are not here. Like things like systemd and things like network manager, those are not present in Alpine. Alpine uses the original Linux method, and that even goes back even into Unix, the way Unix managed the systems. That would be OpenRC is used to manage services, and knit-tab is used to manage what services get loaded and so forth. And then you also have, like the networking is done under the etc network interfaces file is used to control that, that goes way, way back. You can install Docker under Alpine, and a lot of people do it that way. And in that case, you'll probably want to give it about 4 gig of memory, 2 to 4 gig, just to get you started, have enough memory for your Docker images to run. You will need to install a repo, and there are instructions on the wiki to tell you which repo you need to use to do that. It's a community-supported repo. If you want a GUI, you can do that. There are 3 that are supported directly by Alpine, and that is XFCE, LXDE, and OpenBox. You have to use Xorg. Wayland is not supported, as far as I know, under Alpine. Didn't see a package. You can install Mate and Awesome Window Manager. There's probably some others. I saw some references in there to GNU and also to KDE. And those were under the community editions, but I haven't seen whether or not they're complete or whether they're just something that is in work. I don't know. Like we talked about APK. If you need the man pages, you have to install those. They're not installed by default. Neither, well, we'll check that, but I don't think the utility is either. The man utility, I don't think it's. So with that, let me go down here to a full screen. All right, there we go. And I don't know if that's going to be big enough. I don't think that scales. It just makes it bigger. Now I've already got one running here, so let me just go ahead and trash this. Yeah, it uses power off. Been a while. I don't use Unix that much anymore. Yeah, all the BSD variants of Unix used to use the power off. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that one. Don't need it. So go ahead and create a new one. And then I'm going to go down and choose the other 64-bit, since there isn't an entry for Alpine. At least I don't think so. Didn't see one. I'm going to give this a gig. It won't need it, but if I want to run Docker, at least I'll have a little bit of memory to play with. And same thing, I'm going to give it a little bit of space. Okay, and then I need to go in. I need to add my ISO. I'm going to be using standard. I do have the virtual one here. The virtual is slim, but it also doesn't include a lot of applications. So I'm going to go ahead and do the standard one for today. And then I'll go to network and we'll choose bridged so that it sees my router. I'm going to use DHCP. And then I think what I'll do here is, this is going to finish before I even get this up and running. So at the size that I want, yeah, it's already up. It's pretty quick. Okay, so I hope you can see that. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Test one, yeah, good. Audio is working too. That's always a help. I think the saying is, audio without video is radio, but video without audio is nothing. Okay, so first thing it's going to ask me is what keyboard to use, US. If I have a variant of the keyboard, I can tell it here. I don't. I just have a regular PC one. I'm going to give it Alpine Test. It's the name of the host. It's asking me for which Ethernet port to use, and that's correct, ETH0. I'm going to use DHCP for now, and I don't have any additional network configuration that I need to do, and I've got an IP address. So I will give root a password, which is the next thing it's asking for. And then it's going to ask me for a time zone. So I can go ahead and list these. And then pick the one that's nearest me, or in my case, UCT is fine. And then I'll use Crony. Actually, I think I should have said yeah, I think that's universal. I think that's Central Time in Europe. That's okay. That's all right. We'll figure it out. You can do an F here, and then it'll ping every one of those 46 servers and find the fastest one for your locale. I would suggest doing that at first, but for today, I already know this one is the fastest for me, so I don't have to do that again. The number one on the list. So I'm going to go ahead and do OpenSSH. And then it's going to ask me for my hard drive location, and that's SDA, as it's showing there. And I want to install this with sys. Of course, you know, your time zone you can change. That's not a big deal. And that's done. That was the install. It's just writing out the boot right now. Okay. And I'm going to do a power off, because I know it won't eject the ISO. So not all operating systems do that. So we'll do it manually. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and start it back up. It'll be a blink when it goes by grub. If you could even see that. I saw it for a brief second. I mean, it was probably a split second. Not sure even it was probably faster than a frame of video, so it may not have recorded it. Okay. At this point, I can log in with If you do forget to remove it, you'll when you type in the root password, it's just going to bypass it, and without asking you for the password. So I need to add a user. I'm going to do that first because SSH by configuration, the default configuration doesn't allow root to log in. So just be aware of that. Also, sudo is not installed. Let's first take a look at okay, so it's the LTS kernel, 419.76. I suspect that probably will be changing soon since 5.3 is rolling. And that's the new LTS kernel. So I suspect that will be changing soon. As far as packages are concerned, let's do a package update. I'll do an APK update. And then we'll do an upgrade. That's how fast APK is. 136 packages is done. And I can do an APK add. It uses the add command. And I want to put an htop here. And let's see. It's taking 21.5 meg of memory out of 1 gig. Not a lot. Got 15 tabs. This is so refreshing to see. I haven't seen numbers this low since UNIX. And I noticed that I have a whole bunch of Gettys running, and that was also another thing we had to get rid of whenever we did a new install of UNIX as well. So if I remember right, and this is going back in time for me. So now this VI is actually part of Busybox. So I don't know how full-featured it is. Does it know repeat? No. Doesn't know how to read it. That's okay. I remember when Unix had a VI like that too. So the next time I reboot, that will get rid of those. I don't have any TTYs. I don't need those running. I probably should get that other one too. Do that one. I thought there was more. Yeah, let me get that one too. All right, so that gets rid of all those. Wow, I haven't seen a modem. I haven't seen a modem installed in a long time either. All right. So that's the configuration for your network. And if you haven't done it this way, this was the original way that Linux used to do it. So you have, this is your local loopback network, the auto LO, the interface LO, and then below that is auto ETH0. The auto is necessary in order for the system to start up the interface when the system boots. If you don't have that in there and you wonder why your network isn't working, go check that because it's probably because you left off the auto. And then the iFace defines how to use that. And there's instructions in their wiki on if you're going to set this up for a static IP addressing. I think they also have some instructions for tunnels and also VLANs if you wanted to do those as well. Let's look through some of the packages. Yeah, you have to sort them. They're just like Pac-Man where they don't put them in order. Yeah, this looks pretty much like any other distro. One other thing, besides messing with that, you can mess with that on your own, but if you decide to give this a try. So you'll notice a lot of these commands like awk are linked to Busybox. So all those commands are inside of the Busybox application, and that's in bin. So let's go to bin. Let's see how big Busybox is. 833K. Okay, so that's bigger than what I thought it was. They may have added some since their documentation was written, but that's always possible. And things always get bigger when you have more version, when you have newer versions. That's also normal. But yeah, you can see there is quite a few here that are in this. As far as SSH is concerned, I'll go ahead and get out of this and we'll start a terminal. Oh, you know what? I don't think I paid any attention to what my IP address was. Do that. At least I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been 11, 12. Close, 112. They'll probably say, yeah. Okay. Yeah, come on. All right. Now it's going to say, yep. So that seems to work. It uses the message of the day too. See what's in user. Yeah, this really goes back. This is what Unix used to look like. We only had 5 directories in it originally. But so I think with that, let me know in the comments below if you wanted to see this under ARM or you wanted to see one of those other modes done. Also, if you have a favorite small variant of Linux you'd like me to cover, I'd be happy to do that. I know there's Puppy and there's some other ones that probably would be good to look at, but I'd rather do what you guys want to watch. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, as usual, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again real soon, and bye for now.